Good afternoon. My name is Anjali Chandran, and I'm the Public Affairs Officer at the U.S. Consulate General in Chennai. This week, we're celebrating Global Entrepreneurship Week. This is a time for U.S. embassies and consulates around the world to promote entrepreneurship as a way to stimulate local economic growth and to increase global economic prosperity and security. This is particularly important this year during the current economic climate created by the COVID-19 global pandemic. Here in Chennai, we decided to focus our attention on one of the most interesting subsets of entrepreneurs, and these are social entrepreneurs. Social entrepreneurship is a field in which entrepreneurs tailor their activities to be directly tied to the creation of social value. These are rare men and women who possess the same levels of vision, creativity, and determination that allow top business entrepreneurs to create entirely or largely new industries. However, they devote these qualities to introduce new solutions to social problems. And we are very lucky to have several of them, or many of them, here in South India, ready to speak to you this afternoon. We'll also be hearing from an American social entrepreneurship expert who will give you the American point of view. We have with us today Anjali Chandran, founder of Impressa.in in Kerala. We have Shezia Lalani, faculty of the Amani Institute, Amani Institute in India, located in Bangalore. We have Megan Zaworski, also from the Amani Institute in the United States. And we have Tarun Mahadevan, Director of Advantage Foods here in Chennai, a company which includes many wonderful restaurants I'm sure you would recognize if I were to give you the list right now. But before we hear from them, I would like to invite Consul General Judith Ravin to offer opening remarks. This is our Consul General's first appearance at a public affairs webinar since she arrived in country 2 months ago, and we're so delighted she could join us. Thank you, Consul General Ravin, over to you.
Thank you, Anne, and good afternoon to the panelists and to virtual audience members. The U.S. Consulate General in Chennai is pleased to commemorate the 13th anniversary of Global Entrepreneurship Week with today's event. Since its inception in 2008, Global Entrepreneurship Week has fostered a spirit of entrepreneurship in countries around the world. The week-long campaign each November underscores the immense impact by entrepreneurs around the world. It then inspires thousands of event participants who then go on to implement entrepreneurial principles in their own lives. The US government promotes entrepreneurship internationally to stimulate local economic growth, create quality jobs, open new markets for US companies, and increase global economic security and prosperity. Over the years, the US Embassy in New Delhi and US Consulates in India have hosted and continue to host workshops, conferences, tech camps, and training programs for emerging and established entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs from second and third tier cities. US Consulate General Chennai has identified scores of entrepreneurs from our consular district, which covers Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and the Union Territories of Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, and Puducherry, to participate in a wide range of programs throughout the years. We have also invited several young entrepreneurs, including social entrepreneurs, to visit the United States on short-term professional exchanges and programs. In fact, Anjali Chandran, who is a panelist today, is an alumna of the prestigious International Visitor Leadership Program of Exchange. She visited the United States with 52 other women entrepreneurs from all over the world for 3 weeks in 2008. The consulate has also awarded grants to American and Indian nonprofit organizations to host training programs for entrepreneurs. I'm pleased that Shezia Lalani and Megan Zaworski from Amani Institute are on the panel. Amani Institute received a grant from Consulate General Chennai last year. The project is providing training and mentorship for 40 women social entrepreneurs from throughout India. I'm excited to hear more about that program this evening. I would also like to recognize Tarun Mahadevan, whose company brought you the well-known Writers Cafe, a chain of cafes that trains women who have suffered acid attacks to run for successful cafes across Chennai. Social entrepreneurs in the United States, India, and around the world have found innovative solutions to society's most pressing social problems by employing entrepreneurial principles and processes. I look forward to hearing from the 4 panelists about their experiences in social entrepreneurship. During the last 10 months, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted all of our lives. Some companies have not survived the pandemic-driven economic downturn, while those remaining face significant hardship. Unprecedented challenges continue to hinder the progress of commercial and social enterprises. In this challenging environment, we draw collective inspiration by stories of entrepreneurs meeting the COVID-19 crisis head-on by repurposing their business models to meet the needs of the community. Entrepreneurship truly at its best and most needed. It is an honor to be among the social entrepreneurs to reaffirm the US government's commitment to promote and support the achievements of entrepreneurs around the world in stimulating local economic growth, creating jobs, opening new markets, and increasing global economic security. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Consul General Ravin, for your opening remarks. And I'd now like to turn to our panelists. And I think I'd like to start with Anjali Chandran. Now, I mentioned her website, Impressa.in, but I urge you not to go onto that website right now because, like me, you may get lost in all the beautiful saris and cloths and homemade items that she has for sale. So bookmark it and go to it later. But right now, we'll hear from Anjali. And I'd first like to ask you, what made you give up a big job to start this social enterprise for Indian weavers?
Hi, Anne. Thank you for having me here. Actually, when I was working in corporate sector, when I was checking about the happiness quotient, I could find that my happiness quotient is only getting reflected in my family, including my immediate family members only. So, and it was giving a lot of strain to me. And hence I thought like, okay, let me just take a break. And I thought of going for a travel. And actually that travel took me to the weaving villages. And from there, the entire story started. When I went to the weaving villages, the situations of the weavers over there were like really pathetic. And they asked me like, what can you do with me? And I was not even able to have anything because I don't own a shop. I don't own anything which I can promote their business. Hence, I started my Facebook page for them to promote their products, which in fact made my bread and butter from Impressa. And now I'm completely into Impressa's things only. And when I was thinking, I'm thinking like, okay, my happiness quotient, when I'm thinking from now, it's like my happiness quotient has doubled or tripled and it is reaching more families, more people, and their lives are getting impacted. And I feel like this is the best thing which I can do when we are having a social enterprise.
Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing more about that. I didn't realize that this was new to you. You didn't come from this community, this background. You just happened upon this and made it something special. So really want to hear more about that. But right now we'll turn to Shazia. Shazia, you are a mentor and a trainer for social entrepreneurs, especially women social entrepreneurs. Can you tell us a little bit about your work?
Sure, thanks, Anne. Hi, everyone. So let me tell you a little bit about the Indian Women Social Entrepreneurs Network. This is a program that we're running which is funded by the US Consulate General in Chennai, and it's what Amani Institute is leading, along with our partners, Andy India. The program is basically providing 40 women entrepreneurs from all over India. So we really have found gems like Anjali all over India, north, south, east, west, from diverse backgrounds, working in a variety of different areas. And we're providing them leadership and management skills that will result in them growing and scaling their businesses. So like Anjali mentioned, in them scaling their happiness quotient across the country. What we've done is we've customized the content of this program to cover skills, tools, and frameworks that will actually help the entrepreneurs survive and perhaps even thrive during this very, very tough year, but also provide them with tools and frameworks to actually get better prepared for the uncertainty in the years that's coming ahead. And the hope basically at the end of this is that we have then facilitated the creation of a network, of a community of women who basically stick by each other. They become the founding members and then eventually grow this network to build a community of women entrepreneurs across India.
Thank you. And now we'd love to hear from your colleague, Megan, who's not only worked in India in social entrepreneurship, but really all over the world. Megan, tell us a little bit about your role in the Amani Institute, and have you found commonalities among entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs in all these different places?
Thanks, Anne, and thanks everyone for having me from the Consulate and all the great panelists. I don't want to age myself, but the first time I started talking about social entrepreneurship was actually in 2006. And it was the first seminar we were running on it. And at that time, social entrepreneurship was this new term. Nobody really knew what we were talking about. And over the last more than a decade, we've seen this become so mainstream that in the work I've done in the most remote corners of the world, there are social entrepreneurs working to solve problems there. At a local level, even at a national level. So that's been really inspiring just to see the growth in the last decade of how common it is and how much enthusiasm there is to join this sector and be a social entrepreneur themselves. And so a lot of the work I do is more technical, both with Amani and generally, and really focuses on how we can use tools like data and technology with social entrepreneurs to improve the work they're doing and enhance it. And that's a common theme across the globe, that these tools are very valuable. I think what we're seeing is a greater focus on using technology and data. At the same time, we haven't quite cracked the nut on how to measure our impact sustainably across all organizations. So that's something I'm very focused on, and trying to empower entrepreneurs to have those tools to know what they're doing and how well they're doing it. And hopefully that allows them to have a greater impact in the future.
Thank you. We look forward to hearing more about data and technology and how they can improve the work of social entrepreneurs. Now, sometimes when we do a panel, we have more men than women, but in this case, we have more women than men, but we do have Tarun joining us. Thank you very much, Tarun Mahadevan. As I mentioned, you are a restaurateur, but like Anjali, you started with a private sector career, I believe in London, in private equity. So tell us a little bit about your journey from that interesting and rather glamorous life to what you're doing now. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot for having me, Anne, and thank you to the US Consulate and everybody here for allowing us and the company and myself to be a part of this. Huge honor to be among an amazing selection of panelists, and great work, everybody, and amazing to learn about so many different walks of lives that the people here are touching upon. So a bit about myself. I was in London for around 4.5 to 5 years. I finished my undergrad there and worked in finance. I was in banking and then private equity. And after that, I come back here to Chennai to join the family business and focus on growth and focus on seeing how we can further impact more lives. So an interesting journey obviously is COVID-19 obviously has hit the restaurant and the hospitality industry very hard. So what we realized is we had to start suddenly cutting costs at every aspect of our P&L of our business. And then we took a step back and said, hold on, at the moment, we aren't really cutting costs here, we're cutting causes, because the ethos of our company is actually to bridge gaps in society to innovative and sustainable food concepts, right? So if we start cutting our costs by laying off employees or probably shutting down units and all, and the usual things that people in the industry do, we realized that we're not only restricting and putting a plug in our own finances, we're putting a plug in people's finances and the community's finances as well. So we had to really think innovatively and see how we can best support the communities that are being affected the most during COVID as well. And interestingly, what we did is, credit goes to the entire team, because we weren't sure where we were going to be in 3 months, thinking back in March 2020 when we had our lockdown. But credit to the team, they've done fantastically well. We've had a lot of support from them. And even during the COVID pandemic, while our restaurants were shuttered, we served and close to around 200,000 meals across Chennai for various shelter homes, various underprivileged people and all of that. So I think that really goes to say that, we like to offer the opportunity to our customers to purchase with a purpose. That's one of the taglines, and that's one of the mottos at a brand like Writers Cafe. The concept behind Writers Cafe was to enable people from different walks of lives, underprivileged, domestically abused, acid attack victims, as Anne mentioned earlier as well, or provide all of them a second opportunity at life, a second breath of life, essentially, right? And more than anything, to be financially sustainable and independent in their own households. So by doing that, we actually reduce the cost for an actual NGO or charitable organization, because they no longer have to feed that person. That person's able to feed themselves and their family and so on. So that's essentially what we're doing, and we like to focus. We like to think that we're a few companies in the F&B industry really focusing and building the business around people, planets, and then profit, right? So we generate our profits to open more cafes, employ more people, and ensure that this rather neglected aspect of society is actually getting a lot of the attention they deserve. And what we realized is the gratitude, respect, and the commitment from these people is amazing. And it's really helped us build. For example, when I joined the business, we were one Writers Cafe. Now we're just 5 in Chennai. Fortunately, business has been picking up slowly, so we've got pipeline for a couple more to be opening up. So things are going great, things are going good. And again, we'd like to thank people like the US Consulate, who happen to be one of our biggest customers at Writers Cafe and one of our biggest brand ambassadors as well. So it's because of people like you who recognize our causes and who support our causes that we're able to be here today, touching various lives that we do touch and creating these impactful journeys for various people in Chennai and across the globe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the shout out for the Consulate. We very much hope to continue supporting your businesses, and great to hear that you have new outlets opening in Chennai soon. So look forward to hearing more about that. I want to open it up to some questions, and I'll start with a few. Tarun, you mentioned making a profit, and I think some people might be surprised by that, because I think there's a misconception that if you are a social entrepreneur, that maybe you don't make a profit. Maybe you just do good, but you don't actually sort of make a living. So maybe we'll start with you and sort of clarify how that works, and then maybe our Amani Institute friends can give us more of the textbook definition of what is a social entrepreneur.
Sure, and that's a question that's thrown at me very often, and say, hey, if you're making a profit, are you actually doing any social work? What are you guys doing? Because at the end of the day, you still have a net profit. You're net profit positive. What we like to say is it's very simple, right? In order to continue doing the work that we do, and in order to impact the communities and the societies we work with, there's got to be money, right? And in order to have that money, we need to actually be making money, right? It's really easy for us to go knock on high net worth individual doors or large organizations and say, hey, we're doing this, why don't you guys fund us? But then what we realized is, if a situation like COVID-19 happened, everybody's going to just be shutting their doors saying, hey, we've already got so much on our plate. We don't think that will be possible at this point of time. So we realized that in order to be sustainable, in order to have a model that works, a model that's scalable, that can really work not only in India, not only in Chennai, but across the globe, we've got to make economic sense before we can actually make sense in a community and in a social sense, right? So that's why we realized that, hey, first we're going to focus on the fact that we want to have a business and a model that actually throws money at us. And then the second step is what we actually do with that money, whether we reinvest it into the business, grow it, or whether we donate it to charities or whatnot. So when it came to that question, we realized that as opposed to just giving money, giving profits to charities and all of that, if we're able to open more cafes, if we're able to have more writers cafes that can employ and create employment opportunities for these people who actually work with these NGOs, we realize that the impact and the actual branding and the word of mouth marketing that works is far superior. It's very far. For example, I remember when my father started Writers Cafe, the average sale he was doing was extremely minimal, very minimal. And I think, if I don't remember, I think Scoop Whoop was the actual online marketing platform that actually did an advert and an interview on what Writers Cafe was about. And immediately he saw sales jump 5x, not even by doing any sort of actual online marketing or offline marketing, but people came in to support the cause, right? And as long as we can tie in that eclectic mix of food, family, and community, and ensure that that mix is well blended, I think that it's important that we remain profitable in order to open more Writers Cafes, and as well as support people we do on a daily basis.
Thank you. I guess same question to Shazia. Can you let us know if what Tarun describes is typical for social entrepreneurship? Is that what your official understanding is of the term, or how can we understand this better?
I think she might have frozen in.
All right, go ahead.
And I'm sure she has a better textbook definition than I will ever give, but I will just back up what Tarun said and support that. I think we don't want to get into semantics, but social entrepreneurship has been applied all over the board. So some people who are doing NGO type work use the term, but the traditional sense, I think, is exactly what Tarun's been doing, which is really trying to be sustainable through your own income streams. And I think that's very valuable when we think about sustainability. Not everyone can have those income streams. So some people still need grants or other sources of income. But we do, I mean, I know at Money, and also I encourage people to seek out that sustainable income. So Tarun summed it up better than we already could.
Excellent. Maybe we'll go to Anjali. Are you having the same experience as Tarun? Are you able to be sustainable and also increase your happiness quotient?
Yeah, as Tarun said, it's how the society takes up. Even during the COVID pandemic time, we were also like about to shut down because we are not having any online or offline business. So it was like a tough time for me. Hence, and at the same time, it was a tough time for the viewers as well. So we thought, like, why can't we come up with a new idea? And I came up with a new handloom challenge through the social media, whereas a customer can spend rupees 550 and we will be sending you 2.5 meter pure handloom fabric at your doorstep. And it was taken by a lot of people, and we were able to reach most of the places, and we got a very good number of customers. And so it was like how the people are taking up when we are coming up with a social strategy.
Wonderful. I did see the handloom challenge. That was a very innovative idea. And maybe back to Tarun on that same idea of being adaptable during COVID. I read that you guys are trying to come up with a way to deliver food from a machine. Is that still happening?
Yeah, that was a pilot project that we had, run through the pandemic. So what we realized is we said, hey, all of a sudden with the entire restaurant industry, it's built on connecting with people, right? It's built on human interaction. You go to a restaurant to experience the hospital experience that the service crew offers you, the chef offers you, the manager offers you, and all that. Suddenly, when we had to remove the human element from the hospitality industry, we were like, hey, hold on, that's the foundation of that, that's the building bricks of this entire industry. So then we said, okay, how can we actually provide good quality, clean food to customers by removing the human aspect? So, which is when we started working with a company called Go Freshly, who had developed this very high spec, innovative, and top notch. And by top notch, this is probably the Ferrari of vending machines, right? So you've got a very, very, very well developed, robust vending machine that's able to actually heat food, give it, you can order your food, pick your food, it heats it, cooks it, gives it to you in all of 30 seconds, right? So we started working with them, and we actually launched it. Like you rightly said, people were talking about it. People actually really, really did appreciate the idea. And I now know that GoFreshly is actually working with a lot more companies working at actually implementing those machines across the globe. And it was a very interesting journey, because all of a sudden we had to change the way our menu worked. So most of our restaurants are priced fairly towards the upper middle class to the uber wealthy of Chennai. So then we suddenly said, hey, it's not like people are going to be pulling up a Mercedes and then ordering out of a machine, right? So how can we actually provide food to the masses? So then we had to rework our menu costing, our recipe costing, and actually give food that people appreciate, right? So, and all of this in a hygiene and safe and clean environment as well. So GoFreshly was able to offer that machine to us, which did create a lot of buzz, which created a lot of impact. And hopefully you should see some of those machines, at a lot more public places in the coming months. So if you do, go ahead, try it out. And if the food's bad, please write to me. I'll be sure to look into why it's not that great. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm sure the food is very good. While we have you, tell us a little bit more about your decision to work with women who are survivors of violence. How did that come about, and what are the challenges and opportunities working with that population?
So it's very simple. My father has always wanted to see how he can build a business to create positive impacts on communities. So while he'd been doing that year on year through various charitable organizations, fundraising events, he wanted to create, like we talked about earlier, a sustainable model that enabled people to actually come in, spend money, and leave the restaurant or the cafe knowing that, hey, you know what, I've done something good today. I've supported a good cause. So initially we started working with a couple of charities, and then my father had actually nailed down and started working very, very closely with the International Foundation for Crime Prevention and Victim Care. These are women who have been domestically abused or physically abused by their husbands, by their family members, and essentially have very, very, what can I say, dark pasts and dark histories in their lives. So we then said, okay, fine, hold on. How can we actually create employment opportunities for these people? It'd be very easy for me to just say, hey, put on an apron, go out there, take some orders, and start interacting with customers. But what we found out is they were actually very, very, very shy, and more than shy, they were actually scared of being reintroduced into society after be it their mental trauma or physical trauma, or even just their physical appearance. So what we then realized is, okay, fine, how can we actually still create employment opportunities for them? So then we said, let's go back to the basics. Let's do what we do best, which is train people in making food. So now we have a training center that allows people to make ice creams, pastries, confectionaries, cooking, and then even into service. So what happens is these women go through a 3-month rigorous training program in all of these fields. And at the end of the 3 months, they choose the field that they want to enter, and provided the company has a slot open, they then get slotted into that position, and then they're a full-time employee, right? And what we aim to do is we aim to ensure that there aren't a large amount of differences with the company treating them as an employee and a company treating another person as an employee. We ensure they're entitled to the same benefits, they're entitled to the same rules, they're entitled to the same regulations. And what actually happens there is, while people say, hey, you know what, you need to think about what they've gone through, what we actually ensure is we provide a normalized playing field. We tell them that, hey, everybody here is equal, right? And if everybody here is equal, that means everybody gets the same amount of respect, same amount of rights, and same amount of pay scale or anything like that. So that has actually allowed them to boost their confidence, their self-esteem, their independence, essentially. They go out there and say, hey, you know what? I'm as much a part of a society as any of us on this panel or anybody viewing this video is. So that really helped us helped us get the engine running. And of course, it comes with its own challenges as well. So what we actually have is we actually have a counselor in the company with help of the NGO that we work with, who actually speaks to them on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, addresses concerns that probably the company can't. and ensures that at the end of the day, they are actually like Anjali was mentioning, their happiness quotient is still intact. It's still doing well, and they're happy working with us and doing what they do.
Thank you so much. I think people will really benefit from hearing your experience and your story, and hopefully be inspired by it, as I know I am. So thank you. I think we have Shazia back from Amani Institute, which is in Bangalore and which works across India. So Shazia, do you have any other stories of inspiring social entrepreneurs that you've worked with that you'd like to share?
Absolutely. Thanks, Anne. And I hope everyone can hear me. My internet seems to have dropped. This is Murphy's Law. I think every time there's something interesting or something important going on, internet tends to be your best friend in these situations. Yes, I do. I mean, just from the program that we're running right now, the Indian Women Social Entrepreneurs Network, I think we have 40 fighters in the group who've shown us what resilience is and what it's like to actually, you know, just quickly on the go, be nimble and, you know, change your product, add a new product or a new business line or a new customer segment to just stay alive and stay afloat, right? We have examples of women who have who are working in the sustainability business and who work with eco-friendly products, who've said that they've changed their products to actually make it, again, more relevant to the time. They've included masks. They've employed other women who then became also, who became unemployed, and they sort of like brought them in and taught them how to do things. So they were also employing at the same time, while also, you know, simultaneously getting more and more diversity in their products, which was very much in line with what was needed, you know, need of the hour. We also have examples of people who've changed their customer segments. So realizing, for example, that, you know, perhaps their main source of funding was coming from a place where they've now diverted funding for immediate COVID relief. So how can they then sort of try and figure out how they approach either you know, individual donors, from crowdfunding campaigns to actually trying to go online and get familiar with digital and, you know, the entire world of digital. So yes, we have a lot of inspiring stories that have come from the network of people who basically just thought on their feet, who've realized, for example, that, you know, you can't go to the field to work, and therefore how do you reach out? How do you then, you know, gather data? So suddenly technology has become more important. Suddenly diversification of your product line is more important. Suddenly thinking about your target group and your customer segment and saying, hey, you know, how can I be innovative here? And who else can I reach out to? They've all been very, very agile and in, you know, just making quick fixes in their line of work.
Great, thank you, and welcome back again. Let's go back to Anjali. Tarun talked about sort of how he got into this segment of working with survivors. Tell us about how you met the Weavers, how you decided to work with them, and what were the challenges along your journey?
And I'm an avid traveler, and I used to travel a lot, and especially to the rural villages. So during one of my travel, I went to a weaving village and I asked for some of the products from a weaver. He gave me a bundle of clothes. I told him that, no, I need only 2. And he was telling me like, okay, we are shutting the looms and we don't have any use with these clothes. You better take it and give us some sort of money. And I could find that from the clothes, it's like 100% handloom, and we will not get it in any of the branded stores at that price which he was offering. And I asked him like, why you are not getting these products into big platform? Then he was telling me like, it's not having demand. Then on a later note, I found that it is the middleman who is eating the profit, and these people are not at all getting the right amount which actually they deserve. So I thought like, okay, let me give a try. And I just told them like, okay, I will get back to you. Let me try in my own way. And I just started it as a Facebook page. And seeing the response, I was also like shocked, because I never thought like people will be this much crazy about handlooms. And when I was just taking a customer feedback, they told me that it is because of the pricing which you are offering. So I found that this is the main issue. This is the main bridge which is blocking the handloom weavers to reach the customers. And we made it as a channel. So whenever a customer buys products from Impresa, they know that there is no middleman and they are directly getting it from the weavers. That's why even in the handloom challenge it happened, because many came and asked me like how you can give a 2.5 meter fabric of handloom in just rupees 550, including your payment gateway amount and along with the shipping charges. I found that our margin will be less, but we need more production because these people were having tons of yarns of materials in their warehouse, and it came like that. So slowly it is like I was like a person who just visited their village, and now I'm like a family member. They used to call me for all their functions, even for their children's wedding, or whenever they are having something or the other as a good news or even as a bad news, they used to call me. And even it's like more of rather than a business venture relationship, now it's like a family relationship, and I feel only the social entrepreneurs get this chance.
Wonderful, thanks. While we have you, I wanted to ask you about your trip to the United States. The Consul General mentioned that you were selected for one of our prestigious international visitor leadership programs, which brings people from all over the world to the US for 3 weeks. And everyone has a different experience in different cities. Tell us a little bit about where you went and who you got to know and what you did there.
Actually, the thing is like when I was traveling, I came to know that I'm traveling with 52 another women entrepreneurs from different parts of the country. So being a woman, when we are asking, so which is the best thing which had happened to your life, many will be telling having a kid, or having, when it is like a woman entrepreneur, they may tell like it is like having an enterprise or become self-independent. So if somebody asks me, with no doubt, I will say it's my IVLP, because I have got 52 international sisters, and even during the COVID time, even till yesterday, we are like very much connected. We used to celebrate all the functions, and we are interacting on a monthly basis with all the COVID, how is the COVID affecting all the countries, and how the women entrepreneurs are surviving on this. So I think the best case study or the best book which I have with me is the IVLP diary now.
Is there a particular memory you have of the United States, or a particular town or city that you went and someone you met there that was valuable to you?
Yeah, it's like I have heard about Global Girlfriend, the social enterprise, many times. When I was in India, I was able to meet Stacy, who is the founder of Global Girlfriend, when I went to Kansas, and we visited their office, and it was like a very nice experience for me and my friends who were also social entrepreneurs.
Great, thank you. I'm glad you could go, and hope you can help us find more people like you to send, because we run this program every year. So
yeah, sure.
Great. Megan, maybe over to you, also from the US perspective. Both Tarun and Anjali talked about technology. I mean, Tarun talked about the machine that he's using to dispense the food, and Anjali talking about her website. Are these the kinds of innovations that you're helping to implement with other social entrepreneurs? And is this something the US is particularly good at, or is this a global sort of a change that's happening?
That's a fantastic question, and I think those were both great examples. So one thing I caution is there's been a large shift to focusing on technology as an ends instead of the means for a lot of organizations. And I especially see this in India and in the US, where they're putting a lot of funding into AI anything or some sort of tech enabled social tool, but they're not spending a lot of time funding social entrepreneurs using technology to achieve their mission. So as a means instead of an end. And I think that's what Tarun and Anjali were sharing, is those were tools, tech tools that they were using to achieve their mission, but that wasn't their mission to use a tech tool. And I think that's really important. As far as the US being better or worse, I think there's so many different examples, but what I have found working in the global South, especially in Kenya and in India and Southeast Asia, is a lot of the tech innovation that is happening in the social sector is coming from there. So it's not coming from the US because I think a lot of the infrastructure that we had didn't drive it, but because of the lack of infrastructure in places, especially rural communities, those communities and those entrepreneurs have really innovated beyond some of the Western countries because of the need. So a lot of the really interesting technology we're seeing around agriculture, around education, around mobile payments that are linked to social enterprises, all of those pieces are really coming from the global South. And I think that's really encouraging to see. And I think we have a lot to learn in the US from those innovations and help our communities in the US as well.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to some participant questions. And the first one, I'll just open it up to anyone who wants to take it on. But the question is, how do you work with underserved communities in India when there are many divisions along caste and religious and ethnic lines? Anyone want to take that on?
I mean, I can maybe give it a go. This is something that we were really thinking about with our program, and the truth is that we couldn't crack it because we realized that, you know, the IWSN program in that sense was sort of like restricted to people who could speak English, you know, and at least a basic level of English, and therefore, you know, access this learning. But I know one thing that we've had conversations with the US Consulate General from day one has been, how do we actually spread this impact? And you know, so one way, which is not maybe the most direct way, but one way of doing it is by empowering people who can then go, you know, sort of like have that multiplier effect and pass it on. And this is something that I've seen happen a lot, especially with women, but again, not only restricted to women, but there is this multiplier effect, right? Where you empower, that there is that need of wanting to then spread it on, and you realize the value and the effect that you can have on people who potentially don't have access to such learning, to such networks, etc. So one thing that is very clear in our mandate with the group of women that we're working with is that you've been given this opportunity, but it doesn't end here. How do you actually take this now to places and to people who don't have access to the things that we are privileged enough to have access to, who have to, you know, fight battles at home, prejudice, etc., to really even start thinking about doing something in this space. So we're really sort of leaving it in the hands of those who we work with to really take this mandate and spread it on. That's one way of doing it.
Anyone else want to comment on that question? All right, let me go to another one. This is from Meenakshi from GRD College. She would like to know, what is the role of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in supporting social entrepreneurship activities in India? So maybe Amani Institute, would you like to take that on?
Megan, are you going to go first? I can see you both smiling at each other.
I think you should probably handle the India focus.
Yeah, can you repeat the question again, Anne? So it was, what was the role of the ecosystem?
Yeah, this is just as it was asked. So what is the role of the entrepreneurial ecosystem domain in supporting social entrepreneurial activities in India?
Okay. I mean, you know, one thing that I do know is that the entrepreneurship journey is a tough one, whether you're a social entrepreneur or, I don't even want to say non-social entrepreneur, but basically whatever entrepreneurial journey you're on is always tough. And I think the one thing that we have learned works the most is this sense of community. You know, I was smiling to myself when Anjali mentioned about her 52 sisters through the IVLP program. I think that's what you mentioned, Anjali. And for me, that is something that we practice in every single program that we run at Amani Institute, which is how can you get people together to support each other. And so I think that's one of the things, like it's about collaboration instead of competition. So how do other entrepreneurs champion the causes of other people who they know, rather than trying to figure out ways to one up them? And I think that's one of the biggest things that sort of like can really help the ecosystem as a whole, because at the end of the day, I mean, like, you know, like Tarun mentioned, and like in that first question about who is a social entrepreneur, these are people who have purpose and who have social impact at their core. And if they do well, the planet does well, we all do well. So I think it's basically just our job as every single player in the ecosystem to just do what you can, provide access to communities, provide access to mentors, provide access to people who can potentially fund them. And you know, you want to give them access to these resources so that they can continue to grow, irrespective of COVID or anything else that hits.
Thanks. Anything to add, Megan?
No, I think Shazia has summed that up very beautifully. I think the only thing to add, and I don't know if they meant on the question, like the general entrepreneur ecosystem funding or supporting the social entrepreneur ecosystem. But a lot more needs to be done, I think, to share resources, whether those are tools or funds. And a lot of that doesn't need to be like giving a grant necessarily, but could definitely be done by finding synergies. So if you're working in education and you run a for-profit education company, you're not thinking about socially minded, how can you incorporate some of these social entrepreneurship programs or tools or even entire companies into your own through synergies so that they can achieve the same goal together. So I think that's definitely starting to happen, but could use a little bit more of a push from the entrepreneurship side as a whole.
Thank you. We have another question from GRD College. This is from Vishaka. And her question is being compassionate a skill or a mindset for a social entrepreneur? Anybody? Tarun, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a mindset, because what happened was, if it was just a skill, then people in our organization wouldn't have been working when we were paying only 50% of their pay during lockdown. They would have been complaining. They would have probably resigned, shifted industries. But I think that they all realize, and this is something I'm always proud of, and something that the team always does well, is they do understand that they're just not working here for themselves. They're working here for the organization, and they're working for an organization that actually is aiming to do something more than just be there around and just do business. So I think compassion is definitely a strong mindset. And if it wasn't a mindset, my father wouldn't have bothered starting Writers Cafe or grown the other brands and just chugged along the way and just replowed profits into probably acquiring other companies or doing something else with it. But I think that being passionate about what you're doing and for who you're doing it is something that helps you wake up every day and ensure that you're giving your 110%. Because one thing I've realized is, when you asked me earlier, you're saying, hey, you make a profit, but you're a social entrepreneur. I think if you give your 100%, you will make a profit. But if you give your 100, I think to actually turn that profit and give it to organizations that really deserve it, it's got to be 110%, because it's an excess of 10%, because you're going above and beyond what's required to do, what's required to your actual job role. So I think compassion is definitely a mindset and not just a skill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anjali, what do you think?
I will go with Tarun actually. It's a mindset, I feel like. And we should have a passion as well. We should have a passion to encourage people and be with people and build a community where all are treated as equally. I feel it is, because if it is a skill, we have to, all the time, we have to nurture it and we have to polish it every day to make it perfect. but I don't feel it is like a skill. It is a mindset only.
Interesting. Well, that leads into my next question, which is from a student, Akash Shroff, and he would like to pursue a career in the development sector. So what would you suggest he do during or after university?
Maybe I can begin and then sort of hand over to Tarun and Anjali. I have to, because this is what we do at Amani. Amani Institute as an organization exists. Our mission is to develop professionals who create social impact. And we do this through a model of education, because we've realized that, to become, for example, to become an engineer, there's an engineering degree, and to become a doctor, there's your medical degree, but who is training people with the skills and tools and mindsets to actually, build a career in social impact and to become an entrepreneur also. So who's helping people with this? That's where Amani comes in. We run a whole bunch of programs with individuals, with organizations, and our work with individuals is primarily actually through our postgraduate program in social innovation management, which is to basically help people understand what it's like to build a career in this space. I don't want to give too many details, and I'm happy to share that information afterwards. But I think one thing we've realized is that it's not only, you cannot learn this in a textbook. It's not something that you can go to a class and say, okay, I have done 3 things and now I am ready to be a social entrepreneur. It's something that you need to experience. And that's why I think the program that we run is very experiential, really has, an apprenticeship that's part of it, because these are things you need to get experience in to see what it's like. So, be an apprentice with Writers Cafe, be an apprentice at Impresa, and sort of see what it's like to work in this space, to see if you're actually cut out for it, while at the same time gaining the tools and the skills and the frameworks that you can apply. So my suggestion is try to figure out how you can understand the sector first, see if it's something that you're cut out for, and then do the Amani program. I had to say that, sorry. Tarun, over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I think Shazia was just being a bit too modest. I think the person who answered this question just do an internship with Amani, wherever it is, whether it's in India or the US, and they'll probably get all the answers they're looking for.
Great. Anyone else have thoughts on what a person should do to work in the development field?
I just want to, well, obviously echo what Shazia said as well, but and I learned this the hard way, so I'll just share the personal side of this, but getting your hands dirty is the most important thing. So whether it's, through Amani and experience-based learning, if you don't have access to that for some reason, it's really about getting out into the field and getting your hands dirty. So I spent a long time in the traditional education track of this, studying development, studying, the social sector from a very ivory tower lens. And while there is some value to the network I built through that, a lot of what I missed out on was that interaction on the ground. And so it took me many years after leaving school and many jobs to actually get that interaction on the ground, to find out what I was most passionate about and to understand really what needed to happen in the field. So I think the sooner you can get on the ground, the better. And the second point that's really important is take a skill with you. So whether you develop it on the ground or you already have it coming in, figure out something you can specialize in. A lot of people come into this field of development thinking, I want to do good, and so I'm just a generalist. I'll just generally do good. I think if you can come in with a skill, even if you have, accounting or coding, or if it's something like that that you can bring with you, that brings a lot of value, not just into getting you a job, but also to the work you're going to be doing. So if you're young and you're thinking about it, those are my 2 bits of advice.
Great, and I agree. Some of my own experiences bear that out as well. So thank you. I think we have time for one more question before we close out our webinar. And so this one was coming from Facebook, and I'll just open it up to whoever wants to answer. What are the things that keep potential social entrepreneurs from succeeding at fulfilling their potential?
Should I jump in again and then I'll hand it over
Please.
while everybody's thinking?
Please.
For me, I mean, a lot of this is a mindset thing. And the biggest problem I see for most social entrepreneurs is burnout. So I think a large amount of the people I've worked with have gone through this at different phases, but they don't take care of themselves because they're so focused on taking care of the mission of their organization and the work they do. So I'm a huge advocate of self-care. And I think it's really important that everyone, you know, whether they're the leader of the social enterprise or they're one of the people working within it, really advocate for their own self-care throughout the process, because that will allow you to have greater impact in the work you do. So don't forget to do that. And somebody else probably has a better answer now. I'm gonna
I think one of the biggest things is entrepreneurs have ideas. That every entrepreneur has a great idea. I think an important question each entrepreneur has to ask themselves is, am I capable of executing this idea as opposed to handing it to somebody who can execute it much better for me? So I think that's the first, that's one of the biggest roadblocks I've seen, and especially even myself, I realized that, hey, you know, I've got this idea, but I may not be the necessary. For example, I'm a horrible cook. I cannot cook to save my life, and yet I'm here sitting in F&B industry. So while I may have the idea to possibly make the world's greatest grilled cheese sandwich, I know for a matter of fact I cannot make it myself. So I think that developing and identifying the right people who can execute your idea is another huge barrier that people should overcome.
I can't believe you can't cook. That's great. Anjali, can you weave anything?
I think the proper delegation, as Tarun said, we have to find the proper delegation, like people who can take it up. And because I'm not good at marketing, if somebody comes to me, I may be talking about the social values and all, but I may not be good at marketing. So we have to find the correct people and we have to start delegating. That is the main thing, because if you are doing everything at your own thing and if you feel like, okay, I am the perfect person for everything, that is not the right attitude, I feel.
Great. I think that is it for questions. We have to wrap up, but if I can ask each of you to give just a few closing remarks to along the same lines, any advice you might have for someone out there who might be the next Anjali or the next Tarun, the next client of the Amani Institute, what would you tell them? Anjali, why don't we start with you since you're still on the screen?
Actually, social enterprise or social entrepreneur, being a social entrepreneur is not an easy cakewalk thing. Or when you are seeing the panelist or when you are seeing the interview, you may feel like, okay, I can also be a social entrepreneur. But first you have to think about yourself and you have to ask yourself, like, whether I really have the passion to continue this. Because you will not have red carpet entry all the way. In my personal experience, if I'm saying, rather than the awards or rather than the recognitions I got, I can count I will not be able to count the n number of oppositions which I got from the society, because it is like that only, especially when we are a woman and we are coming to change the society, people will be having a different attitude as well. But if you really have the passion, you don't have to think about anything. Go ahead, the world is yours.
Thanks. Megan?
Sure. It's been so inspiring to listen to Tarun and Anjali as well and their stories. So thank you for being here. I think one quick thing for all social entrepreneurs, and maybe this is just generally for people in this space, is to stay really nimble. And I think this is what COVID has taught us more than anything, is to stay really flexible. You know, we may have the best idea and the world changes tomorrow. And so how can we keep adapting and adapting to the way the world is changing, adapting to the way we change as individuals along that journey. So as much as you can, stay open-minded and nimble and be ready to move. Hopefully we won't have as many COVIDs in the future, but things like that will happen always. And so we need to be ready to change and grow with those moments.
Thank you. Tarun?
Yeah, I think I'll just touch upon what Megan and Shazia said earlier today. I think a big part of social entrepreneurship and a lot of our programs and models that have worked here is because we've always valued collaboration above competition. I think idea sharing and open innovation is extremely important. So if anybody'd ever like to collaborate with us or anybody at Advantage Foods, reach out to us, write to us, and we're more than happy to explore something and create that positive impact. Again, mainly only through food, because that's what we do. So thank you very much once again for having me, and good luck with it. Thank you.
Thanks. So the last word is for Shazia.
Yes, thanks, Anne, and thanks everyone. I think the one thing that I've realized with all of our work with social entrepreneurs is that, like Anjali mentioned, that the journey is tough, but it's also quite lonely. And sometimes it takes so long to actually see the impact that you're trying to create, and sometimes you don't even see it in your lifetime. It happens in perhaps your children's lifetime. So I think the one thing we've learned is to focus and invest in yourself, really understand your why. Why is it you do what you do? And use that as something that, brings you back at times when that perhaps, you feel like the whole world is against you. There needs to be that one thing that gives you energy, that makes you wake up when you feel like everything is just completely, against you. So I think find your why, invest in yourself, and use that to keep fighting the good fight. Yeah, that's about it from me. Thanks so much, everyone. This was a really nice conversation.
Great. Well, your last words were so poignant, all of you. I don't have much to add other than to thank all of you for joining us. I know Tarun spoke about social entrepreneurs having to work 110%. So I think the extra 10% was here today when you went away from your day-to-day work to be with us, to talk to the U.S. Consulate about our shared interest in entrepreneurship, in creating a more prosperous world. And each of you has your own story, but collectively just a very, very interesting group, and really enjoyed the conversation. And I want to thank our Consul General, who's still there, listening in, and I hope she was as interested in it. Oh, there she is. CG, do you want to say goodbye?
Sure, it was incredibly inspirational, great ideas. I hope listeners appreciated that. Very, very innovative as you are, very practical and very forward thinking. So thanks, great conversation, I agree.
Thanks, CG. And sorry, I put her on the spot, so might get in trouble for that later, but no, we really appreciate it. And happy Global Entrepreneurship Week. And everybody go to Writers Cafe, go to the website impressia.in and check out Amani Institute. And thanks very much.